Great. Okay. Well, good way to start the morning off. Just say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Really excited to welcome you all to the first ever Build User Conference or CalcuQuote. Those of you who don't know me, who we haven't met before, my name is Chintan Sacharya, and I'm the founder and CEO of CalcuQuote. First of all, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being with us here today. It's probably really early in the morning for some of you, really late in the afternoon for others, but I'm really pleased to welcome those of you with us who've been with us since the beginning of CalcuQuote's journey, as well as those who've recently become CalcuQuote fans. I'd also like to, before we go further, thank our sponsors and exhibitors who've graciously helped us put this conference together. Couldn't be possible without participation from industry leaders such as those. So please, if you haven't gotten a chance, check out who they are and get a chance to have a conversation with them. And then finally, to the CalcuQuote team who has worked tirelessly on making this happen. There's a lot of presentations lined up and things like that over the course of the next 2 days, and they've worked really hard on that. As an aside, we are all in one place together for the first time in almost 14 months, or even ever for some of the new people. So it might get a little bit goofier than usual, and you'll understand the cause of our excitement being around other humans for the first time in so long. So so that's where we're at. And one other thing is that, so CalcuQuote started, so going back to why we put this conference together, CalcuQuote started 7 years ago with the general idea of making the world in EMS better by applying process and technology to just improving things. And our aim was to move the industry forward. And reflecting back on the past 7 years, I'm really proud to say that we've been able to stay true to that mission. We've relentlessly focused on how do we improve things. And in line with that vision is how we came up with this idea for the Build Conference. So for the Build Conference, the intention was how do we get this industry collectively moving in the same direction forward? And as a result of that, there's kind of 3 things that I want to point out to everybody who's attending that, over the course of the next 2 days, try to do these 3 things. The first is networking. So there's a network tab on the left-hand side of your screen that you can click into and just get connected with a random attendee of the conference. You'll find peers, you'll find CalcuQuote people, you'll find some of our partners. But get in there and just go in for a short chat. It's somewhere between 30 seconds and 3 minutes. Just introduce yourself, and if you want to continue a conversation, you can connect. But we do have people from all over the globe, so it's a good chance to get to exchange ideas, share best practices, make some friends, things like that. The second thing is learning. We've got a lot of really good presentations ranging from what the future of the industry looks like to nuts and bolts about CalcuQuote products. We also have, as I mentioned, 8 awesome handpicked exhibitors who are eager to meet you as well. So there's a lot of learning that can happen here. And then finally, speak up, engage. So a conference like this, like any other conference, isn't successful until you get people participating in the process. And so whether you're networking, visiting exhibitors, joining any of the roundtable product discussions, just speak openly about the challenges you're facing, share ideas, ask questions. And the beauty of an industry-centric conference like this is that most of the people who are probably attending are probably in the same situation, and we can all benefit from solving some of these complex problems that the industry is facing together. Okay. So that's kind of my little spiel to kick off the conference. With that, I'm going to get to what you're all here for probably, which is not technical difficulties or the introduction about the conference. It's my very great honor to be able to introduce our keynote speaker today, who's standing right here next to me, Steve Vecchiarelli. Steve and I met almost 5 years ago when he was the vice president at DigiKey, where amongst his various duties, he was leading the digitalization effort to bring DigiKey's API to the market. Steve knows I'm going to say this, so I don't think he'll be offended, but not to call him old, but he's literally been doing this in the electronics industry longer than I've been alive. So he's got quite a bit of experience in the industry. Although Steve did retire last year right before COVID hit, which I take as a sign that he's better at predicting market disruptions than he lets on. But Steve has remained an active mentor to me and an advisor to CalcuQuote and the industry overall. So he's still very much engaged in foreseeing a lot of the things that the industry is heading towards now. So Steve's going to be discussing the modernization of the electronic supply chain, which is a topic that becomes increasingly relevant with all these headlines that you see in the newspapers. So I'm really excited to hear what he has to say, and hopefully you guys find a lot of value in it. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce Steve Vecchiarelli. And I'm going to start. Steve.
Great. Okay, so how do we get to the...
Yeah, let's close this and share.
There we go.
If that works.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending. As Chintan said, my name is Steve Vecchiarelli, and I'd like to talk about, digital transformation. Digital transformation is a topic that is almost as many interpretations as the word supply chain. Supply chain can go from logistics to the movement of material to the movement of data, and digital transformation can mean all kinds of different things. So in our industry, what I like to talk about is how do we move from, the way that it has been done for the longest time into the way that it's going to be done in the future. It's like going from the Stone Age to the Space Age. So if we look at some of the authors out there, this gentleman, Jason Jennings, in a book, The Reinventors, I think really identified it that most businesses, their success is fleeting, and they really only have two choices. They can stick with the status quo, which inevitably they'll go and decline, or they can continue to change and stay vital with the market as the market evolves. But how do they do that? So the how, and we'll try and get this to move. It's daunting for most people to think outside of the box. Everyone goes every day and does the same thing. And you have the people that like to put the facts in the fax machine and it comes out the other end. And the everyday user fears change because they don't understand it. They don't know, how it's going to affect them personally. Are they going to lose their jobs or whatever? So they don't understand how change is going to enhance their position in their company and in life. And the senior managers, the leaders who built the controls, can't move away from them because they invented them. So if they move away from them in time, they think that, perhaps they're going to be questioned about why did they do them in the first place. So, you have the mentality of it's always been the way we've done things, rather than it works right now and it works well. But as we move down the road, is this the best solution for what we need to do? So why digital transformation? Supply chains can be a very stressful environment. Everybody is moving down the line, especially in a manufacturing environment where you have the manufacturing people, the floor needs to be fed, the senior management needs to project revenue, and the people who do it, and I'm assuming that everyone on this call is a supply chain professional in some way, we thrive on that. Most of us, I like to call us adrenaline junkies, that the fast pace of the industry and the fast pace of what we do, we thrive on that. There are a lot of other good jobs, and if you don't thrive on that, probably it's best to be an accountant. Sorry for the accountants, it's not bad, it's just the way it is. So the thing is, can we take the routine tasks that we do every single day and automate them so that the humans can do what the humans do best, and that's think, and that the machines can do what the machines do best, and that's move data and do repetitive processes. So, what does this look like post-COVID? One of the things that I noticed the most as I was sitting watching all of the television shows in the early days of the COVID crisis, is how many times the word supply chain was used, and people became used to hearing supply chain, supply chain, supply chain. People who never knew what a supply chain was. So there was a spike in demand, and all of a sudden you heard that you couldn't get meat. And, the biggest thing was the toilet paper shortage because the supply chain had fallen down. So more people are aware of what we do with the supply chain, it forced companies to examine how they do things and come up with digital strategies to improve their competitive advantage in the marketplace and be able to supply their customers. So in digital transformation, it's, to summarize it, it's utilizing technology to better understand processes and incorporating the movement of data. And, everybody has heard that, we generate more data in a day now than we have since the beginning of time. So to take that data and all make sense of it and be able to remove friction, improve productivity, elevate profits, but most importantly, enhance the customer experience so that all of that other things happen. So in Europe, there's a company, A.T. Kearney, which is a large consulting firm that a couple of years ago did a study on digital supply chains. And what they found out was that 70% of the companies that they interviewed were planning to make large investments in digitizing their supply chain. So what they hope to get out of that is by taking the data, it would lead to better decision-making, increased flexibility, lower cost, and more importantly, lower risk in their supply chain so that their customers' experience would be enhanced. So, I skipped a slide here. So we're Gartner here says we're in a new phase, and really when it was early on, but it's pretty on that we're in the digital business, autonomous business phase where the technology is headed. We move data now at astonishing rates, and in the electronic manufacturing supply chain, our customers think about one thing: better, cheaper, faster. How can we get the information that we need to make more and better decisions quicker than we've done it in the past? So if we look at the digital transformation as part of a business strategy, transformation-focused companies nearly double the growth rates in revenue and productivity over currently focused companies. So to go back to the Jennings quote, you can take the information and move into newer things to stay relevant, or you can stay with the way you do it or die. So companies that have taken a digital transformation position, and I'll tell you that having dealt with this, we've only, as an industry, got our big toe in the water with this. There is a lot more places to go, and this is going to take us to places that even today we don't understand where it's going to go. But when we look back 3 or 4 years from now, it's going to be, okay, we saw this at the beginning, and this is where it's taken us, and it's good. So, this is not a new phenomenon. If we look back since the beginning of time, we had the writing on the walls, writing on papyrus leaves, all through that. And as this comes out, this is the new bright and shiny object. We need to look at this before we concentrate on our business. And that's really not the case. What we really need to do is really need to concentrate on this to enhance our business. So we can't take our eye off what we do day to day, but we need to take this and enhance what we do so that we can move our business along faster. So what's driving all of this digitization? Like I said, we're really in the initial phase of this IT integration, planning significant investments, using the big data to impact the paperless process. So the things that technology enablers, we now have the cloud, artificial intelligence is coming in here. We're able to enhance our UI user interface so that it's easier for our users to use it, extract what they need, and go forward. And then big data. How do we leverage the analytics and the data that we create every day to improve demand forecasting and see an end-to-end supply chain? So we can see from raw materials all the way out to the manufacturing floor and then into our customer's warehouse, or in some cases, into our end customers' use of their products. So, what does that look like for your company? I like this quote because I don't see supply chains as just a way to supply product to a manufacturing floor. I like to see this as an enhancement to business. So, for all of the price that we'll pay in all of these enhancements, what kind of value are we going to get out of this? Are we going to be able to enhance our customers' experience, make our operations more productive? So do we use web or other methods, machine to machine? So as we go down this road, are we able to enhance all of those? So, in the movie Top Gun, I feel the need for speed. That was Pete Mitchell, the Tom Cruise character, was I need to go as fast as I can go. And I think we all know in the electronics manufacturing industry that the need for speed has never been greater than now. The customer demands are more, our customers, time to market, how important is it? Our customers want to get their product, the next latest, greatest widget to the market before their competitors so that they can have a competitive advantage. One of the biggest things that impacts, especially in the EMS world, product design cycles are getting squeezed all the time. So design cycles that used to be, in a lot of cases, 2 and 3 years are now 3 to 6 months. So, how does the need for material impact that? So the design cycles are getting squeezed all the time. And the analytics and data that drive those supply chains need to outpace design cycles to bring products to market faster. And things change all the time. And I'll show you an example on the next slide of how things change over time. On the left, if I can get there, is a picture of me at 23. I had long hair and was skinny. And the picture of me later on at 65, the hair's gone and the skinny's not there anymore. So things do change a lot over time, and we have to be able to adapt to it. So information delivery, we're really at an inflection point, and we've gone from an analog method of exchanging information, PDFs, faxes, emails, and some people would say that, emails are electronic, but all they do is they take it, an analog piece of data, and then transmit it, electronically. So it's really not a electronic method. So we're moving into e-commerce and internet, and some of the devices that do that are APIs, application program interfaces, EDI, and other advanced services. So B2B in a digital environment. So one of the things, for as long as I've been involved in this, the better, cheaper, faster, whether it be in the actual material that we use or how we do things, has been a constant, and I think will continue to be a constant in our industry. How we keep up with this and keep up with our customers' supply chain demands is the challenge that we're going to have in front of us. So moving to a more automated machine-to-machine environment increases the customer's time to market, plus it drives up their quality, increases throughput, and increases their customer satisfaction. And if the customers are happy, their customer, which is the manufacturer's satisfaction, goes up, and the end customer satisfaction goes up. That's a win-win situation across the board. So we hear about this, that the new, with COVID, almost every day in the news, the new normal, the new normal, the new normal. So what's the new normal in the manufacturing world? Well, the new normal is everybody is trying to do more with less. There isn't a company around that you have people sitting around twiddling their thumbs saying, we've got so many people, we don't know what to do with them. Everyone is taxing their people to do more with the assets that they have. So insufficient resources and tools needed to optimize the supply chain to maximize a company's profitability. And another thing that is a constant is lack of visibility from our customers across the supply chain. It goes all the way back to the raw material suppliers and is internal and external to what we do. And last but not least is dealing with legacy systems, which inhibit all of that visibility, agility, flexibility of the supply chain. So we need to be more creative with less resources. So how do we do that? So, you know, one of the axioms of change is it's more about shaping and adopting a shift in the nature of supply and demand. And digital transformation success is not just overhauling the organization's operating model, but revamping the culture and the mindset. And quite honestly, I think that is more of a daunting task than being able to come up with new systems, because you have new systems and we get back to, that's not the way we've done it. This is the way we've done it all the time. And changing the mindset and the culture of a company is a big task. Okay, so is digital transformation universal? So does this mean the same for all companies? And no matter what business we're in, what this looks like to us, our customers need to have a great experience. That's a universal need. But can you extend the experience so that your ability to service your customers makes price less of an issue and service and everything else is utmost in their mind? And in quite a few cases, the question is yes. So does business imitate life? And yes, it does a little bit. Well, one of the things, and you can talk about they're getting too big, they're getting too small, and all of those things may be relative, but Amazon really changed, and I hate to use this expression, the paradigm, because I think it's overused, of how things are done. And especially in the consumer space, they were the first to recognize the consumer buying patterns had changed, so how the consumers react with retailers. Now, how does that spill over into the supply chain and manufacturing and all that? Well, it does, because everybody uses those services like Amazon or Walmart or everything else on the web. They come into work and say, it's so easy to use these services to buy whatever I need to buy from Amazon. Why can't I do that in my work environment? So these do spill over into the work environment quite a bit. So what's the difference between a B2C, business to consumer, and a business to business environment? So in a business to consumer, there's always a human interface, there's always web navigation, and there's always manual search. I think as an industry, where we need to go to is we need to go to more of a business to business environment where there's less human interface, more machine to machine, and more of an automated search. So you load data into a system and it automatically gets you that without having to manually do anything. So the way, 1995, Windows 95 and the web begins, life wasn't, going to get any better than this. This was the thing that was going to take us the next 100 years. But for some now, the web is not efficient enough. So what does a typical web session look like? You sit down, you open the session, you get data from your ERP system, you write down the information, you go to the web, you re-enter the information, you get new updated information, you write it down, you go back to the ERP. It's really like, there has to be a better way. So, we talked a little bit earlier in the how we're at the inflection point. Well, APIs are the special sauce that are going to tie all of this together. In 2010, and I go back to Amazon because I think Bezos had a lot of vision. He told his developers, we can, develop any kind of system we want, but they're all going to be tied together with APIs. And all of the supplier partners here and many other companies have APIs that can tie directly into tools that can enhance your business. So how you take that data integrated into the ERP is ultimately where we're going to end up. So innovation and productivity in the API economy, it's a real new mindset. Humans become more productive because they do the things that they can do best. They think, and they perform less manual tasks. If you weren't doing the manual tasks all day and could actually think about ways to improve your business, all business productivity go up because the humans do a great job at thinking about things. The big data that we generate every day will impact how we conduct business and the speed at which we can impact business. So the better, cheaper, faster comes back into play because we can service our customers faster with better information. So, how do we look for these opportunities? Well, probably the best way to do this is to look for an issue and then try and create a solution with technology that was not previously available. Use tools like CalcuQuote that can give you information and can create the ability to think about how to create better solutions for your customers. So tools like that are the great equalizers. It allows real-time transfer. And I know that a lot of suppliers are there already, and most are trying to get there where they allow real-time transfers of data so that it's not data that's generated once a day and then it's sent out, it's generated that's real-time at the time of the query. So real-time transfer between different systems using a true machine-to-machine environment is a great way to enhance productivity. It provides a positive ROI, which the senior management are looking for. Yes, it costs us this much, but we can generate this much more business and increase our operations by X and all that. So it does give the ability to provide a positive ROI in a very short amount of time. So, one customer's journey is how do they grow their business and remain profitable by investing back without adding unnecessary labor. And this is an actual customer. It's somewhere in the U.S. that was tasked with this. How do we do this? So Their solution was to invest in a machine-to-machine connection tool with their suppliers, and it integrated right into their ERP, and develop a AI scheme that chooses products based on price, where things below a certain price, if it met lead time and other parameters, that it would automatically place the orders. They reduce their operating cost on how much it costs to place an order from $40 an order down to $9. And they were able to increase the flow of product to the floor and increase their productivity so that they could continue on their growth path. So, talked a little bit earlier about the change management. So, from a supplier side, suppliers have been generating product data for years, which they kept very close to the vest. It was really their family jewels. So the mindset of, do we let this out to our customers, was and is still a contentious thing for a lot of suppliers. Their customers wanted a machine-to-machine connection in order to make faster, more informed decision. And I think that change has really happened, or is happening. The willingness to expose the data to their customers, although at the beginning has had tremendous internal pushback, is really starting to move forward. So there's a real collaboration in this API economy. But with that, there's things that you need to protect yourself with: data protection, nefarious use of your data outside, streaming data to other source, and security risks. All of those can be not 100% negated, but can be worked through so that the risk is worth the whole thing. So, in summary, companies that have already implemented or have explored machine-to-machine connectors bring their customers closer to them. They increase their productivity and increase their stickiness with their customers. There's an API economy waiting to be exploited, which will increase productivity, reduce soft costs, and increase customer values. And I want to leave you with a quote that shows that the thinking that we need to go through now is not a new phenomenon. This quote is, "There's nothing more difficult to plan, no more dangerous to manage, no more doubtful of success than the creation of the new order of things. The reformer has fierce enemies, and all who would profit from the preservation of the old, and only lukewarm defenders who would gain from the new. This lukewarmness arises partially from the fear of the adversaries who have law in their favor, and partly from the incredulity of mankind who do not believe anything until they have the actual experience of it." And that was written in 1513 by Niccolo Machiavelli. So what we're going through here is not a new phenomenon, but it's one that we're going to, I think, press forward, and is going to make our industry significantly better. So, questions? Thank you very much.
I'll come back over here with you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, very much. Good talk. And thanks, everybody who participated. I'm going to kind of kick it off here. So let me stop this screen share here. And I'll give everybody a chance. If anybody does have any questions, we'll go through it. Otherwise, I just have one kind of to kick us off, which is, I know you and I have had conversations about, how do suppliers get comfortable with protecting their data, but also making it accessible for people to do business with them. Where do you see that balance, and what would you say to somebody who is an executive on either side to say, yes, it's okay to share this information? Like, how do you make that business case?
Well, I think that, first of all, you have to realize that customers, most of them are honest. So and I say most, there are some that aren't, but most of them are honest. And um, you can't let all of your data, out, but you can let pertinent data out, which will bring you closer to the customer. And the customers realize that, and because they understand that it's a leap of faith on your side, there is trust that builds up between both the customer and the suppliers, so that I use the word stickiness, so that a stickiness develops that brings you actually closer to the customer, because the customer knows that the data that you're sharing with them is something that's taken, in some cases, 20, 30, 40 years to develop, and you're trusting them enough to give them the opportunity to use that data to make their business better. So their business gets better, they reward you with more business, and everything up and down the line works together.
Nice. And then one other question I have is, and I see a question here from Andrew as well, but just continuation on the previous point. So one of the things that I know drive projects in any business, large or small, is whether something is treated as a cost or as a profit driver, right? And a lot of times people think terms like API and software ecosystem and all these things, and they think, oh, that's an IT thing, that's a cost center for us. And what's your take on that?
Absolutely. I personally don't see that. I see that, yes, that's a cost center, but the thing is, you have to look beyond what it's going to cost you. Go back to the Warren Buffett quote that cost is what you pay, or price is what you pay, value is what you get. If you take those costs and say, okay, if I spend this money, I can get this much of an ROI, return on investment, from it. My business can rise this much, or my profits, because I can get it through the factory quicker, or whatever it is, can rise 15%. It justifies the cost center. So yes, there's a cost with it, but there's a return on it. It's not just a dead end cost that goes nowhere. There is a return on it, and I think that companies now are beginning to look beyond how much it costs. I mean, cost is always important, but what am I going to get for my money? How is this going to increase my business? How is this going to make my customers happier campers, so that they reward me with more business? And I think all of that plays into it. And I think that if we take a holistic approach to all this thing, a lot of that doesn't fade away, but it's put into perspective that it's like, yes, it's worth this investment.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we talk about a lot internally in CalcuQuote. Is it's so much easier if you could show a direct link between somebody searching for components and issuing purchase orders.
Yes.
Right. And if you can get that holistic view of it, then it starts to feel more like a sales channel rather than a cost center. So, okay, I'm going to switch over here. Andrew's got a question here, and his question is, how do you know if you have good APIs available or not to make use of, and what do you do about legacy systems? So maybe we can break that into two parts. The first part being, how do you measure if an API is being well adopted?
Yeah, well, I think the best thing to do is talk with the supplier. I know in the distribution and the manufacturing component world, most either have APIs now or are working on APIs to deliver information to their customers. Manufacturers want to be able to take their parametric data and get it into the hands of the design community as quick as they can, and are developing it. Distributors who deal in the design world, and that's just about everybody, and also the supply and demand world, want to get that information into their customers' hands so that they can make more informed decisions. So I think the best way to do is just talk to your suppliers, and they'll be very happy to talk to you about APIs to use and then you have to be able to use the APIs once they get them. So incorporating them in a tool like CalcuQuote, so that you can take that and actually use that data is a good way to explore how do we use these APIs. Legacy systems, that's a whole other category. So I think what you need to do is the first step, get a supply base and one user interface. If it's in the distribution world, 4 or 5 distributors that have APIs that can supply data, and then be able to have it go into one repository, one tool. So now you only have to have one tool between yourself and your legacy system, and then find out, okay, how in the API world, it's, is it a push or a pull, and how you get the data into there, and it takes a little bit of work, but it's not an impossible task. And then build the links to get it into your legacy systems. Legacy systems, for as long as I was doing this, have been like the bane of everybody's existence. Homegrown systems, canned systems that are outdated, or in some cases the companies are even out of business, become a challenging thing. So find out, how your system operates. Your IT people will do that. There's plenty of integrators that may be able to help you. But if you go with a single tool that can integrate that, then you only have to do that once. And once that gets in there, then, how does the data come in? What data is pertinent to me? How do I analyze this data? Do I want to, do all of my, in the case of buying selection, do I want to do that all in the tool and then just have that fed into my legacy system? Do I want the tool to feed all the information there's all kinds of questions to be asked. So I think what you need to do is peel back the onion, look at your end goal, and then come up with different kinds of scenarios. Do we do this in steps? Do we, completely jump in the water? How do we do this? But it's not an impossible task. It just, with legacy systems, there's, no canned solution that works for all of them, just canned steps that you have to take to get there.
And there's technical architects and experts out there that do that stuff for a living, that are very talented at figuring out solutions to those complex problems. But yeah, there's probably not a standard solution. But related to that, I think one of the things, Alfonso has a question here. And Alfonso's actually in Central Florida, like we are right now. So Alfonso's asking, how do you help define the quality of the data? And I think the source of this question comes from, and we see this on the CalcuQuote side, is sometimes it shows inventory when there's not, or the pricing is looking different than when you call your supplier rep and things like that. How do you deal with that? Because as the world becomes more machine to machine, the accuracy of the data becomes important.
I think that all falls back on the supplier. So I know some suppliers are real time and have the ability to supply you your price right now. So if you sign up with their API, you get accurate data right out of the gate. From other suppliers that I've talked to, they're not there yet, but they want to get there. So just like, when I went off about the legacy system, they have legacy systems that they have to deal with, and they want to get to the fact that ABC Electronics goes in and wants to go to this supplier, and they want to be able to make this as easy for you as possible. I'm going to say they're all working on getting there. Some are there now, some haven't got there yet, but probably will. And from that, I think that within a relatively short period of time, now I'm not talking days, but within the next year or perhaps a little longer, which in the whole scheme of things is relatively short, most will get to where they need to go so that the quality of data is there so that you can make better informed decisions.
And one thing that kind of comes to mind is, I mean, if we even think about CalcuQuote's short tenure in this, when we first started, data entry errors were so common, right? You'd have a system returning stock when it wasn't there, or pricing that was different or whatever. And now it's like, yeah, you hear about it, but it's once every few months out of millions of API calls. And so the example that comes to mind is like the Tesla self-driving car gets into one accident and makes national headlines. But how many human-driven cars were getting into accidents on the same intersection every day of the week, and nobody noticed? So errors are happening regardless. It's just it becomes much more noticeable or much more impactful because a human's not reviewing every step of that transaction sometimes. Good. And Alfonso, to your follow-up, yes, let's grab a beer. I'll message you afterwards. Okay, we'll close with this final question here from Havard, who is asking, and I think this is in line with the legacy systems question, because there are a lot of ERP systems out there that were built, in the 90s and the early 2000s before this. Like
a lot were built in the 70s.
Yeah. And these older ones don't have the connectivity installed, right? They're siloed systems. So how do you modernize those? How do you build that kind of integration to make sure that customers work with these APIs that are being offered by their suppliers?
Yeah, and I think Chintan said it earlier. The best thing to do is get some system architects that can take a look at what you have, and I'm sure there are some that they can't, but in a lot of cases, they can devise a scheme to come up with a communication standard that can ingest the information and get it into your system. Everybody wants to get away from the keyboard as much as they can. I mean, that's just a giant time sink, that if we can get information into the ERPs quickly, then we only have to do stuff once. And like I said, then it gives the purchasing staff, the design staff, whoever it is, time to think about what they're doing rather than doing data entry, which is I don't want to say mindless, but it takes a lot of time that they could be being more productive doing other things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to that, one of the things that we always say with CalcuQuote is it depends how seamless you want the connection from your ERP to be, right? There's kind of a spectrum of, I want it to be fully customized and integrated and automated, to I'm willing to make some compromises and have it be semi-automatic. And the difference is ultimately in terms of the amount of development and things like that that's required, right? You want it custom tailored to you, it's going to be more expensive, but you'll get larger ROI. If you want it semi-automated, then you get a faster ROI, but it's not going to be as substantial as the fully automated version. So yeah, there's definitely a spectrum there to consider, which ultimately comes down to a business need on a case-by-case basis too. Okay, well, we're approaching the bottom of the hour here. So thank you all very much for your participation. Of course, continue engaging in the chats and things like that. We do have other sessions starting after this, so we've got a couple minutes. Feel free to hang out, but at 10 o'clock, we've got 2 topics going on. So for accessing that, you'll click on the sessions button on the left-hand side, and you'll get to talk with a couple of CalcuQuote people talking about some new products we're working on, as well as some tips and tricks for how to apply best practices to your RFQ process. So thank you all very much for engaging with us on this, and look forward to continuing the conference.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.